Have you ever felt a rush of adrenaline when you think about getting into the stock market? Well, what if I told you that is not actually a good thing when it comes to investing? Let me explain why later in this list of the worst investing mistakes beginners make. First up, let's talk about betting everything on a single stock. You know how this starts. You're really excited about a particular brand, so you decide to invest everything you have in it. But what happens if some bad news comes out about the company and the stock takes a nosedive? Well, you're down a large chunk of your portfolio, all because you were missing a critical protective measure: diversification. This is when you own not just one, but many stocks. It means that no single company can destroy your portfolio. So buying just one stock is always dangerous. But do you know what's even worse? Getting sucked into a hype trap. When you hear about people becoming overnight millionaires through some new trending investment, it's really hard not to think, couldn't I just jump in and get lucky like that too? But do you know how to spot a pump and dump scheme? This is when investors artificially drive up the price of a stock through spreading false or misleading information. Once the price is inflated, a few people get to sell their shares at the high price, but everyone else is left with worthless stock when the price inevitably crashes. Remember GameStop? In early 2021, the subreddit Wall Street Bets organised a coordinated effort to drive up the price of GME stock. They encouraged thousands of people to buy shares, causing a surge in demand and massively driving up the price. But this surge was not based on the actual value of GameStop as a company, but on speculation and hype generated online. So what happened? When the price reached its peak, the initial instigators of the scheme sold their shares, causing the price to plummet rapidly. Most people who bought into GameStop during the frenzy ended up suffering significant losses as the stock price crashed back down. The moral of this story? Avoid anything that sounds too good to be true. It can be so tempting to blindly follow financial influencers or online hype, especially when it sounds like there's a chance to get rich overnight. But the best way to protect yourself is to spend a bit of time learning how to question, research, and verify investment opportunities, so you can vet the fundamentals and make sure they're actually solid before you invest. But stocks are not the only thing to suffer from hype. Cryptocurrency has to be one of the financial buzzwords of the past decade. But especially as a new investor, it's a good idea to be cautious of it. It's another area full of stories about Bitcoin millionaires and reasons why you need to get in early on the currencies of the future. But there's one problem with crypto that makes it far more risky than a well-diversified stock portfolio. It's purely speculative. Let me explain what that means. Stocks represent ownership in real companies that make money through selling goods or services and provide returns through dividends and growing profits. And they're regulated by financial authorities, which means they have to report and disclose certain information about the company. Cryptocurrencies, on the other hand, lack this intrinsic value. There's no assets or earnings and very little regulation, and their worth is based purely on what people are willing to pay for them. This makes them vulnerable. Their value is highly influenced by market sentiment rather than real-world utility. Now, I'm not saying never buy crypto, but if you do want to own some, it's a good idea to just keep it as a small part of your portfolio. Can you hear that? That's the sound of trying to time the market. It can be really exciting to try to predict when to buy or sell investments based on short-term fluctuations. Surely you want to buy low and sell high after all, right? But unfortunately, in reality, it's just not that easy. Why? Well, the market is unpredictable. Even professionals with all their fancy tools and knowledge usually don't even get it right, at least consistently. It's like trying to play roulette. Sometimes you'll win, but most of the time you're just guessing. And when that happens, your investing starts to look more like gambling. So instead of trying to time the market, it's better to focus on the long term. That means sticking to your investment plan and riding out the ups and downs. It might not be as exciting, but in the long run, it's a much safer way to do it. Talking of excitement, I mentioned at the start of this video that investing should not feel like an emotional roller coaster. If there are two emotions we've all experienced around investing, they would probably be fear and greed. But this never leads to good decisions, so we have to find ways to keep these emotions in check. So how can we avoid them and have a more stable, consistent approach to investing? The secret is to have a solid, long-term strategy you can stick to. If you build a portfolio based on strong fundamentals that's designed to survive all sorts of financial climates, and you can resist the urge to buy or sell anything in a panic, then your investing will always be based on your strategy and not your emotions. Another sneaky investing trap we haven't talked about yet is fees. If you choose to invest in a fund rather than buy individual stocks, which is a good choice for many people, there will be an annual percentage fee associated with it. This is normal, but do you know what a reasonable fee for an investment fund is? If you're a beginner, you might see a fee of 1 or 2% and think that sounds fine. And it isn't much at first, especially if you're only starting with a small amount. But over time, high fees will make a significant dent in your returns. If you're buying a popular type of investment called an index fund, know that any fee over 0.5% is pretty expensive. Even in the UK, where our funds cost a bit more than the US equivalents, you usually don't need to pay more than around 0.2%. Simply buying and holding a low-cost index fund is actually a good way to avoid all of the problems I've talked about. If you want to learn more about index investing, I have another video all about it here.